This was supposed to be Newcastle United's summer. Champions League football secured, Saudi riches at the ready, St. James's Park dreaming of big-name signings. The stage was set for fireworks. What could go wrong? Well, pretty much everything. The 2025 summer transfer window on Tyneside turned into an absolute circus. A saga of high hopes, gut-punch rejections, boardroom bust-ups, and even a star striker's betrayal. How did a club so primed for success end up getting ghosted by nearly every target they chased? Let's dive into this wild ride of a transfer window, one twist at a time. So strap in and don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Newcastle entered the summer with momentum and money. After a fifth-place finish and a cup triumph, the Magpies were back in the Champions League. Fans expected marquee signings to bolster the squad for their European adventure. Rumors swirled about ambitious bids and superstar arrivals. The optimism was off the charts, but reality hit hard. One by one, Newcastle's top targets slipped away, and the war chest stayed strangely shut. It started with the search for a new goalkeeper. 22-year-old James Trafford. Yet, despite Newcastle's interest, Trafford snubbed the Magpies and returned to Manchester City instead. In a scramble, Newcastle had to settle for Arsenal castaway Aaron Ramsdale on loan as a plan. Not exactly a dream start. Then came the hunt for attacking firepower. Brentford's Brian Mbeumo, fresh off a 20-goal season, fit the bill perfectly for the right. Newcastle pushed hard, but Manchester United swooped in with £70 million and stole Mbeumo for themselves. Another top target gone. It was a pattern developing fast. And it only got worse. Remember the name Liam Delap? Newcastle certainly will. The Magpies had the young Man City striker in their sights, envisioning him as a star of the future. But Delap turned them down and chose Chelsea's project instead. Ouch. Newcastle then pivoted to João Pedro, a rising Brazilian talent at Brighton, who'd been high on Eddie Howe's list. They even slapped in a £50 million bid. Rejected. Next thing you know, João Pedro's off to Chelsea too, where he ends up scoring clutch goals in a Club World Cup final run for them. Talk about adding insult to injury. Newcastle not only misses out on their man, but they get to watch him shine on a world stage for someone else. Hugo Ekitike, a long-linked target since his youth, finally looked within reach after the French striker revitalized his career in Germany with 15 goals and 8 assists last season. Newcastle made a competitive offer, hoping to bring him to St. James's Park at last. But Ekitike snubbed the tune and signed for Liverpool instead. Another one that got away. Another spot in the squad still unfilled. By now, fans were pulling their hair out. But the most painful blow was yet to come. The Benjamin Šeško saga. The 6'5" Slovenian prodigy was the marquee striker Newcastle had lined up as a potential Alexander Isak replacement. For a moment, it looked like a done deal. Newcastle had a £74 million bid accepted by RB Leipzig for Šeško, and supporters dared to get excited. Finally, a win? Not so fast. In a last-minute twist, Šeško chose Manchester United over Newcastle, even though the Magpies matched the offer. United's prestige and allure won out, leaving Newcastle empty-handed again. To rub salt in the wound, reports say Newcastle had even offered more money to both Leipzig and the player, yet Šeško still went to Old Trafford. It was the ultimate gut punch, the kind that makes a club stop and question, what are we doing wrong? Rejection after rejection, frustration was mounting. In a summer that was supposed to build on success, Newcastle instead found themselves licking wounds and reevaluating their entire approach. The Magpies' transfer wish list had turned into a hall of heartbreak. At this point, could it get any crazier? Enter Alexander Isak. While all these transfer failures were unfolding, Newcastle were dealing with a bombshell from within. Star striker Alexander Isak, the club's £60 million record signing and fan favorite, stunned everyone by pushing for an exit. This is a player who scored 27 goals last season and helped fire Newcastle back to Europe, a hero on Tyneside. Now suddenly, he wanted out, and not quietly either. The saga truly kicked off when Isak skipped the PFA Awards in August despite being honored in the Team of the Year. The club claimed he had a minor injury, but no one was buying it. Fans' eyebrows went up. Was our star man really refusing to turn up because he was plotting a move? The rumors swirled. Liverpool was heavily linked, and Isak's no-show only fueled the fire. He would have been sharing the stage with 5 Liverpool players that night. perhaps a bit awkward given the circumstances. Then Isak dramatically broke his silence. The usually reserved Swede took to social media and dropped a bomb. Promises were broken and the club has known my position for a long time. When promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue. Oof. In one public statement, Isak basically declared he'd lost faith in Newcastle's leadership and saw his future elsewhere. He even hinted that the club had misled everyone about his situation, saying others were, quote, pushing their own version of events while he kept quiet. It was an explosive accusation of betrayal, and depending on who you ask, either Isak was betraying Newcastle or Newcastle's board had betrayed him. For fans, it felt like a soap opera. One day he's our goal-scoring hero, the next he's airing dirty laundry on Instagram and angling to join a rival. Some supporters were furious, feeling Isak had stabbed them in the back after they'd sung his name. Others were conflicted, blaming the club for breaking promises. There were whispers he'd been assured a pay raise or new training facilities that never materialized. It was messy and public, the kind of saga that can tear a dressing room apart. And all the while, Liverpool kept knocking. The Reds saw an opportunity to pry away a top striker. They reportedly bid £110 million for Isak, huge money that in a calmer situation Newcastle might have gladly accepted, but Newcastle's stance was firm, not for sale. They rejected the bid, insisting their star was staying put. Isak, however, had other ideas. According to reports, he even handed in a transfer request to force the issue. Trust between player and club had completely eroded. The relationship was in tatters. This left Newcastle in a brutal quandary. Sell your unhappy star now for a record fee, or hold him against his will. Either choice was risky. Sell and you lose your top scorer with no replacement lined up. Remember, Šeško had slipped away. Keep him, and you've got a disgruntled player who might sulk and whose value could nosedive. In fact, there was an extra ticking time bomb. If they held on too long, Isak could invoke FIFA's Article 17 down the line, a loophole that would let him walk away in 2026 by terminating his contract, with Newcastle only getting a compensation fee of around £50 to £60 million, barely half his market value. Newcastle's leverage was shrinking by the day. By late August, the Isak saga had thrown the club into full-blown crisis mode. The season had already kicked off, yet Isak wasn't even in the squad for the opener. Every press conference, poor Eddie Howe was peppered with questions about his AWOL striker. The writing was on the wall, bold and clear. Isak's time at Newcastle looked done. It felt like a betrayal arc ripped straight from a TV drama, and it couldn't have come at a worse time for the Magpies. So how did it come to this? To understand Newcastle's nightmare summer, we have to peek behind the curtain at the boardroom chaos that set the stage. Because while the squad was struggling to recruit on the pitch, off the pitch, Newcastle had a leadership vacuum the size of St. James's Park. Rewind a year. In summer 2024, a power struggle at the top led to the ouster of Amanda Staveley and Miqdad Guddusi, the very figures who had helped broker Newcastle's Saudi takeover in 2021. Their departure was spun as a natural progression, but truthfully, it was a coup in the boardroom. Staveley later spoke of heartbreak and devastation at how she was pushed out. That split left a deep crack in Newcastle's hierarchy, and many now trace almost everything that subsequently went wrong to that moment. Since then, it's been musical chairs in the executive offices. Newcastle has cycled through executives at an alarming rate. They are now looking for their third sporting director in 3 years and a second chief executive in that span. Think about that. Constant turnover in the very roles that plan transfers and strategy. No wonder things feel disjointed. In fact, this summer, Newcastle had no permanent sporting director at all overseeing the window. The previous director, Paul Mitchell, had quit in late May after just 10 months, reportedly after clashing with the owners and manager over a flawed transfer strategy. He left literally without signing a single player. That means Eddie Howe was left to navigate the window without his top recruitment strategist, essentially flying solo on decisions, with a fragmented committee filling the void. Meanwhile, the chairman Yasser Al-Rumayyan and the Saudi PIF owners have been hands-off and remote. They're based in Riyadh and notoriously silent. Reportedly, no PIF representative has ever even spoken to the UK media about the club. The personal touch that Staveley brought, chatting with players, reassuring the manager, keeping communication flowing, vanished. The result? Internal communication broke down. Promises may have been made that couldn't be kept. Isak's camp, for one, believes the club promised him a big pay rise last year, which never materialized once budgets got tight. There's been a sense of confusion and drift, with no clear strategy emerging from the boardroom. To make matters worse, financial constraints tightened around Newcastle at the worst time. Yes, we're talking about FFP, or in Premier League lingo, financial fair play, based on the profit and sustainability rules. For all the talk of Saudi riches, Newcastle can't just spend willy-nilly. In fact, just last year, they narrowly avoided a potential points deduction by scrambling to meet those spending rules. The club has to sell to buy, balance the books, and mind the wage bill. like everyone else. That's partly why the purse strings were tighter than fans expected. As one analysis put it, Newcastle have been boxed in by the league's financial limits, despite their wealthy backing. It isn't a lack of ambition, it's the cold reality of budgets and regulations. This mix of instability up top and financial caution left Newcastle looking disjointed and frankly vulnerable. Other clubs sensed it. Agents sensed it. When Newcastle came knocking for a player, maybe that player saw a club in minor disarray, a project that suddenly looked less convincing than, say, Man City, Liverpool, or Chelsea's. It's telling that time and again, Target cited the project and stature of other clubs as a decisive factor over Newcastle. The sad truth is, even with the Champions League on offer, Newcastle still struggled to match the pull of the traditional giants. London and Manchester remain magnets for talent, and some players and their families just weren't sold on moving up to the Northeast. Geography isn't everything, but in tight decisions, it mattered, especially when combined with the perception that Newcastle's house wasn't fully in order. Yet amidst the gloom, there's a flicker of hope that this could be a turning point. Sometimes a crisis forces a club to get its act together. Maybe Newcastle's owners will wake up to the urgency of filling those leadership voids and backing their manager properly. Maybe a clever late pickup or two, a savvy loan here, an under-the-radar signing there, will shore up a weak spot. The transfer window isn't over until it's over, and football has a funny way of surprising us. A couple of wins on the pitch can quickly change the mood, and if Newcastle starts the season strong, even with this squad, the narrative could flip. Newcastle is in crisis management mode. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Not at all. By late August, they've made only modest moves. A £55 million deal for Anthony Elanga, a young winger cast off by Manchester United, and that loan for Aaron Ramsdale in goal. Decent pieces, sure, but not exactly the headline grabbers fans had envisioned. Key areas in midfield and defense still look understocked, and the good elephant in the room is that Newcastle were reportedly closing in on Nick Woltemade, the towering 6-foot striker from VfB Stuttgart. Loki gives me another Ekitike vibe. It wasn't a name on anyone's lips at the start of the summer, but suddenly it was likely to become one. Newcastle agreed a £64.9 million deal, with Woltemade due in for a medical by Friday and emerging as the potential solution to the striker crisis. The transfer circus might be ending, but the real show, the season, is just beginning. Will this chaotic summer be the prelude to an against-all-odds triumph or the start of a worrying decline? Only time will tell. One thing's for sure, on YouTube and in the stands, we'll be talking about Newcastle's 2025 transfer saga for years to come. What a ride. Anyways, that brings me to the end of this video, and I would like to thank each one of you for helping us reach 1K subscribers. It means a lot. So if you want more of your favorite football bits, don't forget to check out the other Evergreen Bangers in the channel, and also for the upcoming ones, keep an eye out. Till then, don't forget to subscribe, and see you later.